Whenever the Festival of the Stars occurs, Misa plays truant. Then it's here, Asakaza in Tokyo, that the 11-year-old comes to confide her secret wishes to the stars. Misa likes to talk to the stars, the gods and spirits. At least, she says, they listen. She is writing down her wish. And then hangs the note high up in a tree so the gods won't overlook it.
I want to go to school again without fear. That's my most ardent wish.
Japan, one wants to ask the gods, Japan, what are you doing to your children? Learning here begins in the womb. Japan, what are you doing unto yourself? Japan, where will this lead you? Japan, the living hell of drill that turns children into puppets deprived of the childhood. Misa would prefer to hide behind a mask. She is ashamed of herself for being unable to cope with all the drills and because her classmates victimize her for her supposed failure. Some time ago, Misa began to feel she was somehow different to the others. After her mother's divorce, the daughter too somehow no longer matched up to the wholesome image of the intact Japanese family. One of her classmates wrote the word shame on her school satchel. In class, they began to push her around. Misa's marks began to decline. Her mother sent her off to a child psychologist. When Misa's classmates found out, they began to terrorize her.
When I think of school, everything turns black. School's no place for fun. School for me is hell.
With the daughter's problems, her mother feels pretty much left alone, because the only thing that counts in Japan is performance and best results. Those who cannot meet the mark are very quickly cast aside as failures.
Well, that's how it is. You must learn, my mother used to say. They wanted me to be the best, and only the best schools were good enough. And life was especially hard and cruel there. I also hated school from the bottom of my heart.
This is my only friend. When we are together, I forget about school. Those are the happy times.
Morning roll call at a primary school in Tokyo. This is like in the former emperor's army. To the left, quick march. Teachers inspect the troop. The motto of the day, obedience is a game. Japan's children toe the line. Their lives move along well-set paths. Exuberance and spontaneity have been virtually exorcised. The education system defines society as a bed of nails, where not a single nail is permitted to protrude further than the others. And this is exactly how it must be, says the old bonsai gardener.
Nature must be formed. Only then does it develop to its real beauty.
And while this bonsai gardener is working on his miniature trees, manipulating their roots and shaping their twigs with wire, he explains that the most important thing in the life of a Japanese is the ability to be subordinate.
That's why children must be trimmed and shaped as early as possible.
This bonsai education results in a straitjacket society. That is the critical title of a book whose author is the social psychologist Masao Miyamoto.
The major goal of Japanese education is to castrate individuals. What's most important element about psychological castration is that they're so afraid of their pride to get injured. So they don't want to voice their opinions. And through being psychologically castrated, they won't challenge, they won't protest, and that means that status quo is going to be maintained.
Stunting of the personality begins in the womb, says the psychologist. This miniature Japanese will be born in about a month. His mother wants a perfect child. That's why she began with his education when she was 3 months pregnant. How Do I Raise a Genius is the title of a book that is top of the bestseller list in Japan. In it, the Shishida Children's Academy proclaims a training program for the stimulation of the right hemisphere of the brain in unborn children. It is supposed to enhance intelligence. Today, says the teacher, we will teach your child the flourish of the letter A.
Can you hear me, my darling? This is an A, and it sounds like this.
The teacher looks very pleased.
Out of these babies, we create emotionally stable beings with shining eyes who don't cry at night and who develop a positive attitude towards learning and who can even read people's thoughts. I want my child to attend a very good school when the time comes. That's why he must be clever, have a balanced character and all that before he's even born.
The perfect child is the product of education, proclaims the Shishida Children's Academy, which teaches children from 0 to 8 at 330 branches.
That's how blue the ocean is, and all living things once came out of the ocean.
You too, Mr. Teacher? And what about Superman number 7 in my comics? Does he also come out of the ocean?
The founder of the academy, Dr. Makoto Shishida, has become the guru of the so-called education mothers.
Let me compare the intellectual abilities of children with a pyramid. Where you come from in the West, it is believed that children are not able to think at all when they are born. The pyramid is upside down, on the neutral point. We, on the other hand, believe that children have an enormous intelligence potential from the very beginning, which should be promoted as early as possible.
Thanks to Dr. Shishida's so-called visual suggestive method, little Marino, aged 10 months, can work with the video recorder all by herself and start educational cassette programs. Every day, Marino spends time sitting on her diaper-covered bottom in front of the TV screen, learning English. This is how the mother makes her infant fit for what the Japanese call the living hell of examinations, a long string of rigid entrance examinations that are the key to the best kindergartens and schools.
That's how I've been educating her since she was born. Also at home with educational videos. My daughter has really benefited from it. She seems stable and very interested. Hopefully this will make her strong for the future.
Japanese children have no time to lose. Several times a week, they undergo a rapid-fire session of information intake for an hour. This drill comes cheap by Japanese standards, $30 an hour.
I hope my son will develop special qualifications here to enable him to blend well into our society later on.
To blend in well, a yearning all Japanese have. They're not only concerned about accumulating knowledge, but also about the development of very Japanese character traits like diligence and the ability to withstand stress and to willingly fall in line with a group.
Education in Japan is like mathematics. It consists of rules, and only those who command them can handle life properly.
Picture training with flashcards, they call this drill, that is directed to specific parts of the brain. These 2.5-year-olds even get a dose of Japanese classical literature.
Why do we demand this stress from our children? Because we believe that only the most intelligent children from the best schools face a good future, especially in these difficult times of economic crisis and unemployment.
An early start to a great career. This is the Japanese astronaut Chiaki Mikai aboard the space shuttle, who managed to get through her living hell of drills to reach the top. She explains to the youth of Japan what counts in life.
Never forget that you must strive for success and try hard with all your might.
Challenge yourself to the greatest extent.
What the astronaut describes here is the KO way, a continuous jog through the best and most expensive private schools. Citing their own children's example, Mr. and Mrs. Yoshinaga explained that the safest way to the top is like a spiral staircase. From the Keio kindergarten to the Keio primary and secondary school and college to the famous Keio University, what is needed foremost for all this is a lot of money.
All our 4 children attend private Keio schools. That costs more than 6 million yen a year. That's more than $50,000.
Another prerequisite, a clever brain. What the Shishida Academy is for toddlers, the Institute for the Promotion of Highly Intelligent Children is for children from the age of 5. This boy is struggling with a logics game. The headmistress explains the method.
See here, this is the brain of a child. With our method, we stimulate more than 90 regions of human intelligence. Every child is taught twice weekly for 1 hour each time.
The cost around $350 a month. His intelligence quotient is continuously tested and the assignments get increasingly difficult, as long as he has the stamina.
This boy has been with us for years. We tested him, and you can see here that his IQ has risen from 135 to 195.
The learning volume is enormous. Time out is not included, says the mother.
We are given 24 books to study each month. We work at them every night at home until he gets tired.
The third reason for success, the right attitude. Why do we learn? The headmaster of the famous Shotoku primary school asks his elite pupils.
We learn because we are the soldiers of the future. With our knowledge, we will create a new world. We fight hard and do not fear tears and have a love for fairness. As we love Japan, our country, and its people.
The fourth reason to success, the ability to sustain stress. Naoki, son of our Keio family, is waiting excitedly for the biannual results of his Keio secondary school. Tests are as much a part of Japanese schools as rice is to sushi. For us, failure is taboo, says Naoki.
For me, tests are like milestones when driving. I come to them at regular intervals, and I cannot afford to fail a test. But to call this a living hell of examinations? No, I wouldn't say so.
The fifth reason for success, pride. To those who have taken the final hurdle and passed their exams at the Keio University, all top jobs are open. Keio is one of Japan's 3 premier career centers, says the president, Yasuhiko Torii.
Those who successfully complete the Keio way belong to the elite, who can stand for the good of our country and its independence. The spirit of Keio enables us to look upon our nation with pride and respect.
The social psychologist, Masao Miyamoto, throws a different light on this.
If you're going through this education and your teacher is telling that what a wonderful thing to suffer, what a wonderful thing to sacrifice your life for the sake of the group, that's really is a part of sort of if not brainwashing, but it's a part of process of the education in Japan. Because Japanese society is built under the assumption that everything is smooth and perfect, harmonized society.
The result is a society of consensus, where people function like robots. A good example is the police academy in Tokyo. Japanese are being taught from earliest childhood that it is better to follow orders and being guided than following your own direction. Blind obedience. These police trainees are practicing now how to cordon off the scene of a crime with tape. Society viewed as a bed of nails, where each nail is the same uniform height. And she is one bent nail, Misa, who is terrified of all the educational stress, who feels she is a failure and therefore feels the need to hide behind a mask. That is how her psychotherapist sees it. His clinic, the only one of its kind in Japan, offers refuge, especially to children with school problems. Dr. Kazuo Sakai also sees himself as a victim of the Japanese education system. He too has suffered the living hell of examinations. The many children who came seeking his advice helped to open his eyes, and he has come to regard the overall regulating of the individual as one of the main evils of Japanese society. Misa's mother in the waiting room.
I pray that the doctor can help Misa. She must lose this feeling of failure just because she doesn't function like all the others in this society.
Misa is a very quiet child. She is afraid of her own words, Dr. Sakai explains, so he lets her play in the sandbox. And the way she plays gives Dr. Sakai an insight into Misa's psyche and into the soul of Japan. This hospital is a mute cry for help, the therapist explains later. The school's omnipotence is symbolized by the temple, and it's the demigods, the teachers, who give Misa the feeling of total helplessness, of being somehow sacrificed. We experience a similar feeling here at the Ministry of Education. These gentlemen are the demigods of the Japanese education system. They influence the individual fates of millions of pupils. They won't talk to us. The demigods are disinclined to grant us interviews. Japanese bureaucrats don't like mirrors held up to their faces, especially not by foreign television reporters. Instead, take a look into the archives. After World War II, schooling was almost exclusively aimed at raising Japanese educational standards to Western levels in order to close the economical gap. Therefore, learning is not primarily directed at helping the individual to evolve, but at grooming a uniform labor force. The nation must toil and the children are part of the nation. So an average Japanese pupil will sit through 45 school days more each year than, for example, his German counterpart. Once a year comes the reward. The names of those who pass the entrance exam to higher schools are made public. Those who fail to get mentioned here are referred to as ronins, warriors without a master, a typically Japanese paraphrase for a failure. But failure is no option, and to make sure that the exam will be passed the next time, there is juku, the private drill school.
This is the longest abacus calculator in Japan, and the way to the top, where the best are, is equally long.
When this elderly teacher drills mental calculus, he sounds as monotonous as a prayer wheel. Drill schools like this juku for mathematics offer private tuition. The only safe way to success is what the advertisements promise. According to Professor Shiomi, this amounts to making capital out of people's angst.
School by itself means a lot of stress in Japan. And on top of that, there is the drill industry that feeds on the deep-rooted anxiety of everyone, this fear of being counted among the failures. That is the reason why we have this incredible boom of drill schools. In Japan, you buy education like a condom, as a safety precaution.
Private tutoring by satellite. Drills as a national mass happening. The ongoing economic downturn promotes the business of education. Those who fear unemployment try even harder. The enormous early strain turns young children into bitter rivals. That is why Misa no longer wants to hear the word performance nor the word exam. Dr. Sakai, her therapist, asks her what she misses most at school. She just puts flowers into her sandbox. Flowers you won't find in her classroom, just as you won't find kindliness, warmth, or security. What you get every day is the living hell of examinations. That is the title of a film that caricatures parents who try desperately to impress the examination commission for the benefits of their offspring.
Education is like a marathon. The degree of training only becomes clear at the end of 42 kilometers.
And what do you expect for your daughter's future?
That she carries it through and doesn't give up.
Question for the little girl. What do you like to eat? Answer. Hamburgers from Burger Queen. Wrong answer. The correct answer should have been Burger King. This is catastrophic. To prevent such a humiliation, there are special drill schools where only entrance exams are rehearsed. Here, for acceptance into a kindergarten, a correct bow will ensure some additional good marks. When does the father get home from work? The examiner wants to know, and whether he is nice and how he plays with his daughter. All these are very personal questions, and most Western mothers would have put an early end to this cross-examination. But when children take an exam in Japan, their parents' character is also on the line. The examiner's explanation.
Especially the elite kindergartens test not so much the child's knowledge, but the family's character. A smart child with poor behavior wouldn't stand a chance in this test.
Above all, I want my daughter to get used to the strain of examinations, because throughout her lifetime she will have to live through many.
We try to raise a good Japanese who is devoted to our society and the nation. Children must obey and blend into society's structures without any problem.
Those who try to break free will be reprimanded. Children, not as partners, but as recipients of orders.
The mouth belongs here, and it must look like this.
Those who show untimely spontaneity are reprimanded. Those who copy everything exactly are praised.
The dots belong right here and must look like this.
And this, well, this is simply impossible. Playfulness and fun time are unwanted. Poise is everything.
For a child to obey and keep the hands neatly in the lap will be extremely important at the entrance examination. The examiner will always prefer the child that shows perfect behavior.
It is all a question of training. Twice a week they practice until the single file is no longer a problem. At least one mother is a little pensive.
On the one hand, I want my son to be successful and to be able to go to a good school. On the other hand, I sometimes have my doubts as to whether my child will ever learn to get on and communicate openly with others.
Communicate freely and openly with others when there are hardly any role models? But how to communicate freely when even total exhaustion is a minus point on the performance sheet? What has this little boy got in his hands, we ask the mother. Oh, that's a skin allergy, she replies. The doctor says it comes from too much stress. 2 hands of a child, 1 mute cry for help. That is the therapist's diagnosis for the nervous allergies, from which Misa also suffers. Dr. Sakai thinks that the little letterbox and the telephone booth, which Misa so decisively places in the sandbox, are cries for help from the soul. She misses contacts and communication.
Okay, that's it. I'm finished. This is my town, with a fountain in the center.
The fountain represents Misa herself. The remarkable thing is, this is a town devoid of people. The empty benches. Misa's loneliness in the center of a city of millions. The signposts indicate Misa is searching for something desperately. These houses without occupants. Misa misses those human qualities for which there is no room in hectic Japanese daily life. Sympathy and compassion.
Progress consumes the flowers and the birds and the wind and the moon. These words, quoted from the demolition decree formulated by city bureaucrats in their town halls, also apply to playgrounds. Real estate is so precious in Japan that no one is willing to leave these remaining spaces unbuilt. Thus, 60% of all Japanese playgrounds have vanished beneath a layer of concrete over the past 10 years. This is another way of depriving children of a part of their childhood. With ever-diminishing space to play in, the cultivation of human relationships, too, will soon degenerate. Small wonder that a majority of Japan's youth, when asked where they prefer to spend their leisure time, reply, at McDonald's or in the game center. Parents and teachers have too little time for the children, and apart from school, there is no way of making spontaneous contact with others, says Professor Shiomi. So to him, it is quite obvious why game centers are so popular.
Children and young people attempt to regain their lost childhood here. They play in a virtual world which offers relaxation from the school drill. But it's a world just as artificial as their school, where human beings are regarded as robots.
A further outlet to help reduce stress and aggression is ijime. The pictures are blurred, but schoolyard aggression towards classmates is real. Ijime begins with a harmless exchange of words and turns brutally violent in the classroom. Every other pupil falls victim of it. Misa, too. She finds cover behind her dream mask. The memory of her classmates' mobbing brought about Misa's total breakdown. Dr. Sakai applies the Kijong therapy.
Qigong is an old Chinese therapy which enables me to balance Misa's flow of energy. Don't be afraid. Just let go.
I'm a little afraid. Everything is turning.
Don't worry. It's quite harmless.
Dr. Sakai wants Misa to start talking about her problems, and so do we. We find a school where Misa is not afraid, a closed-down school without teachers and pupils, and now, finally, Misa begins to talk.
It's not that someone really harms me bodily at school, but my soul aches. That's why I hate school and the teachers. They don't protect me from the mean pranks of the other pupils. Sometimes I feel so much hatred that I get frightened of myself. In the mornings when I awake, I already feel sick. Often I have to vomit, and I have headaches and fever. When I arrive at the school entrance, I can no longer breathe. I know they will make me cry again. But I go on and say to myself, "Dear God, please help me." Standing in front of the classroom, I don't dare open the door for a long time. And when I finally open it, they all stare at me with animosity.
This is Misa's class teacher. She admits the topic of violence in schools is a subject not addressed during teacher training. Cooking lesson. We are allowed to film, but please let nobody notice that I know you, Misa tells us in advance. Over there on the right, that's Misa, among other children who chanted at her, "Die, you bitch." And here is the ringleader, moved to tears by the fumes of the onions, but otherwise full of hatred for Misa.
No, we have no problems in this class. No ijime, no violence of any kind.
We know better and ask pupils in the yard, is there really no ijimi?
Bullshit. Of course there's ijime. Naturally. We annoy those who are too fat or too small or just somehow different.
Is what the boys say correct?
No, believe me, there is no problem with violence in this class. Not at the moment, anyway.
Has anyone here ever suffered as a result of ijimi? And what do your teachers do about it?
You can forget about them. They won't help you. That's for sure.
I need to learn at school. It's what my mom says. But the drills go on until late at night, and this hatred towards me makes me so tired. So much it hurts when I breathe. I just feel so much anger about my helplessness, but I know there will come a time when I explode, and I'm very afraid of that.
To whom can these children turn? Not their parents, usually. Statistically, a Japanese father sees his child for only 12 minutes a day. The rest of the time is for work, officially 42 hours, 6 days a week. It's more like 90 hours, including overtime and commuting time, says the scientist.
Hard work is rooted deep down inside us, slaving for the sacred entities, the family, the company, and the nation. Time with your children is less important. We castigate ourselves with work until karoshi, death from overwork, kills us.
I don't have the time. You care for the child. Children are tossed like a plaything between father and mother, to teacher and back, like in this TV spot, until they fall into a void. To fall into a void, that's the Japanese euphemism for suicide. Hard to believe, but true. Statistics show that 100 Japanese commit suicide each day. That includes children.
You very often read about children's suicides. I'm so glad that Misa hasn't done any harm to herself yet.
An especially tragic case of a pupil suicide. The story of a 13-year-old Kyotaro. Classmates had picked on him so much that he hanged himself in great despair. Of course, the more helpless children are also teased and victimized at schools in other countries as well, the dead boy's father tells us. But the fact that most Japanese shut their eyes and ears when it comes to ijimi, that is something special. With threatening letters, his classmates had intimidated him and extorted monthly payments of $300. The father.
After his death, the teachers told me the boy never complained about his treatment. That's why we were so helpless.
To make the dead boy pay the $300, his tormentors lay in wait for him at the river. They held his head under water to the point of suffocation. The mother can still not understand.
He never said a word, not a word.
We never knew a thing. But I must admit that very often I returned home very late.
When reports of his suicide were published, children throughout Japan wrote thousands of letters of sympathy to the dead boy. They described their own experience of the ijimi. proof enough that violence and brutality run riot at Japanese schools. Dr. Sakai.
We cannot close our eyes any longer. There is no order in our school system anymore. Maybe that is the price we must pay for making our schools like our cities, cold and anonymous and inhumane.
Today, Dr. Sakai will stake everything on one attempt. He knows that Misa desperately wants to leave school, which he is determined to prevent.
To help Misa, I must do something that is taboo in the Japanese education system. I must put critical questions to the school headmaster. Then we'll see what happens.
We are wondering how quickly we will be asked to leave the school to stop filming with our camera. But to our surprise, Headmaster Oshiro turns out to be very different. Newly in office, self-critical, open, constructive. These are things I learned during my time in the USA, he tells us, and he doesn't hesitate to criticize his colleague, Misa's class teacher.
I admit that this teacher sometimes is a bit rough with the children. Perhaps Misa felt neglected. Regrettably, we still have too many teachers who can't face the fact that children are living beings.
Why is it that in Japan every problem is swept under the carpet so often?
I believe we Japanese live in constant fear of destroying relationships with too much openness. That's why we prefer to keep silent when we see something negative. This must definitely change. It's one reason why I agreed to let you film here.
He even allowed us to film the next scene.
Misa, I hope we can help you here to lose your fear of school.
It's hard for me to believe that. I have no friends here at all. That's why I like to come here on my own, to this reading room.
Misa, I talked with the other teachers and I want you to know that I'm trying to help you. We decided to talk with all the pupils about violence at our school once a week. I hope you feel that you're no longer left alone with your problems.
Headmaster Oshiro, admittedly an exceptional Japanese who has an affinity to bent nails and who thinks that failure should be permitted in Japan too, because people are more important than high exam results. With the words, "You are not alone," Mr. Oshiro has gained much. Misa no longer needs her mask. Perhaps she will soon go up to the classmates who pick on her and firmly say, "Stop it." She will say, "I am no longer afraid of you." At home, Misa tells her fluffy friend that she's found new friends. The headmaster, a camera crew from faraway Germany, and her therapist, who has given her a poem by Kenji Miyazawa as a present. She'd like to read it to us.
I won't give in to rain or wind, nor winter cold or summer heat. I want to be strong and easy of mind. With a smile and without wrath, I will no longer yield.